Okay, Mayor, you can start.
Welcome everyone to the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for Tuesday, November 24th, 2020. Is there a motion to open the meeting? Trustee Taylor, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? Meeting is open. Could we do the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As I do at every meeting, I read the instructions on how to view the meeting and how to participate in courtesy of the floor or at a public hearing. They are always attached to the agenda, but just to be clear, the meeting is being streamed live on the village's YouTube website and via Zoom by either video or telephone. To attend this meeting, the public hearing, or to speak at courtesy of the floor, if you are participating via Zoom, either by phone or video, you can raise your hand and we will call on residents in the order in which they do so. In order to raise your hand, you should click on the icon labeled participants and a column appears on the right-hand side. At the bottom of that window is the raise your hand button. For people calling in by phone, you can push *9 in order to raise your hand. We will let you know it is your turn by calling either your name or your phone number. Welcome everybody. And we're going to jump right into our meeting. We're going to have a couple of public hearings. So is there
We
a
have to
motion?
amend the agenda.
You were waiting to do that to me, Donna, weren't you?
I was waiting, right?
We are going to amend the agenda, which will be a resolution to expend $3,600 for the evaluation of traffic mitigation on Price Street. So we're going to make that item number 6.
You need to make a motion to amend that. Ms. Draper, would you prefer a motion to amend the agenda?
Is there a motion to amend the agenda? Trustee Casal, second. Trustee Sullivan, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Okay, is there a motion to open the public hearing, which is to consider a local law to establish a procedure for creation of loading zones on the village streets? Is there a motion? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? The public hearing is officially open. I know that we have the chief here. And is Ed here? I don't see Ed.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Ed, can you start off on this and then we'll leave it with the chief?
Sure. So the idea is that there is a constant situation of double parking on Cedar and Main for the trucks that are delivering to the restaurants and businesses. And this double parking creates a traffic tie-up, bottlenecks all the time, and is a major hindrance to the clear flow of traffic and safety in the downtown. So we're looking at creating loading zones, 2 on Cedar and 2 on Main. One would be at on the south side of Cedar towards Broadway, and then on the north side of Cedar down towards Main, and then on the east side of Main towards Cedar, and on the west side of Main down towards Chestnut. I think I'll give it over to the chief now. He could give you the exact parking space numbers if you require that. I don't know if you went out and looked at them, but and then we could hear what the public has to say.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, I think Ed kind of hit that right on the head as far as the potentially adding loading zones will help free up some of the gridlock that we get with the delivery trucks and provides a nice flexibility so that our businesses in the downtown can get their deliveries and we can open up the street so that we prevent these backups. So yes, we were looking at two potentially on Cedar, one on the north side, one on the south side, kind of split up so that it kind of gives the access for vehicle traffic either going eastbound or westbound, and then the same on Main. So that was what we were looking at in regards to this.
Can you talk, be a little bit more specific? Where would you intend to have these loading zones?
So we were looking at Cedar Street. On Cedar Street, we were looking at an area on the south side, eastbound, almost before you get to the end of Broadway. So that would kind of help the businesses on that portion of Cedar. And then as you're heading westbound on Cedar, as you kind of head west after the driveway of the poster shop and the bagel shop, in that area, we thought that a loading zone would facilitate the businesses on that western end of Cedar. So that kind of caters to both sides of the street and both extremes, if you will. When we were looking at Main Street, we had identified an area at the north end, so just north of, say, Sam's before you get to Cedar. On the east side of Main Street was a good area to help those businesses at the north end of Main. And then we looked at a couple as you're heading southbound on Main Street, in the area of, say, Doubledays, Harper's on that west side. We were looking at areas that could tie into either an existing driveway, which would make it easier for these box trucks to pull in and out of the spaces to prevent them having to try to parallel park. So we were looking at those. And certainly with the flexibility is that, as we, if they are instituted and say a location we don't look, we could always come back and review and say, oh, well, maybe that location really didn't work. We could see what else is available.
How are we going to be IDing these loading zones for the truckers? Because I also know there's also a loading zone, is there not, on Chestnut in front of 75 Main?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, identification is through signage.
Correct.
If I may, we're establishing a procedure. Your code now provides the police chief in his discretion to establish loading zones. So in this case, we're changing the procedure a little bit to tweak it in that he still has the discretion to make the recommendation to you, but then you'll review it specifically based on the needs of the particular set of circumstances. And then you'll pass a resolution and you'll designate, I guess, the parking meter numbers. Elisa was kind enough to send me the parking meter numbers that were in contention for this evening. So if you were to proceed to pass a resolution upon this recommendation for a loading zone, then what you would do is designate it pursuant to the parking meter numbers. There are 2 parking meter spaces per loading zone that's required in order to accommodate the trucks and the vehicles that would need to be moving. So we're changing the procedure a little bit. He's going to come in with recommendations. That way the public is involved and can monitor where the loading zones, and it gives you flexibility to accommodate the particular set of circumstances, because things may change, things may be different. And this will allow you to consider loading zones throughout the village. Should you get another commercial center for one reason or another, this allows you the flexibility to establish loading zones on other streets as well. If it's appropriate to put a loading zone on a side street to assist, then you'd have the ability to do that by virtue of this new local law.
And if I could add, those meter numbers, those meters can be, if you approve this, can be removed, which cost us, money to maintain. They won't have to be used anymore. So we'll be saving money by removing those heads, because the signage will tell them that it's a loading zone only through certain hours. And then at evening, the two stripes are still there. So that goes back to regular parking at night and weekends when the parking is free anyway. So it doesn't require a meter.
I think that's great, but I think given this congestion that the double parking creates, that this is a terrific idea, irrespective of the dollars. I think also the locations make a lot of sense to me. My one question is about the north end of Main Street. So, I mean, the benefit of that is that those spots are often empty anyway, just kind of north of Sam's, which is kind of a good place for it. The only thought I had was that very often readers who receives a lot of, kind of large scale deliveries will have, rather than a box truck, will have like a very long, very big truck. And I don't know if if Ed or you, Chief, have spoken to Billy, and just logistically, can that large truck go to the other side of the street? Are the types of deliveries, bags of concrete or, very heavy things, is that going to happen right in front of the shop anyway?
I know where you're going, and that's why we try to put these loading zones on ends of streets and in between driveways, like the chief said before, so the trucks don't have to parallel park, and makes it easy for, if an oversized truck is there, like a tractor trailer for readers, they're gonna extend a little past that loading zone, those two spaces, and it'll be okay because there's not another space there. And what Billy does is, most of those big trucks he offloads with a forklift. So at times he's got them double parked in front of his store, and then he has to stop traffic as the forklift backs up, takes the stuff off, and then goes down his driveway. So it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference in my mind that if he's offloading across the street and bringing the forklift across down to his driveway, it does make a difference in between offloading with the forklift, because then the road is clear and it's still not double parked. So he's going to have to block traffic every once in a while as he takes pallets off, but in between those trips, it's open. So I think it improves that process for him too.
And of course, this is going to come down to enforcement, Rick. Right? For people who are double parking illegally.
Which we would be ready to lay down the law on.
Yeah.
But this might also help the businesses in town for all of the pickup that normally happen during the nighttime when there will not be deliveries being made, but then cars, instead of parking in illegal places, will be able to pull into those spots to go pick up their orders.
No, because at night it's going
They're not loading.
to.
Well,
They're
at
not
night,
going to be loading zones at night.
What is it exactly that is going to remain there?
at night after the certain hours on the sign, it will say from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. loading zone only. And then the other hours, the evening hours and the weekend hours, it goes right back to the regular parking space it was before.
Okay.
So restaurants and residents will still be able to park there.
You're saying weekends, as the parking meters, but we're taking the meters away. So Saturday, it's still a parking loading zone, correct?
It can be. It all depends on how we,
Because if we're taking the meters away from those spaces, we still have metered parking on Saturday.
We have a poll out to the businesses that we're waiting for all the replies back. And one of the questions to them was, do you get deliveries on Saturdays?
Okay, good.
Otherwise,
Otherwise, we'll have to sit out there with the little hat or a cup or something.
Generally, though, it's just Sunday that's off. Like in other, when you visit other bigger
Correct.
bigger areas, that's deliveries that happen on Saturday. So I think that would probably be the logical step.
One thing I think, we ought to be willing to evaluate this and just see how it goes and possibly change it. If, 4 months from now, 6 months from now, we're finding that it's not working the way we thought. I just think we need to have an open mind that may not get it exactly right the first time.
Yeah, we remove the sign, put the meter head back, and we move it, try it somewhere else, or abandon.
And that's the beauty of revising the procedure, is that it gives you the flexibility to do it in public. So it informs the public, and it calls for the chief to cause a sign to be put up to give explicit instructions on when it's in effect, when it isn't in effect. But clearly it would be during the periods where the meters would have been in effect. And then it's not structured as a loading zone any differently than a parking space. So it reverts into a parking space.
And how is that going to be monitored if we're removing the meters?
So if somebody parks a residential car there, they get a ticket. A passenger vehicle gets a ticket. Only a commercial vehicle that is in the process of unloading supplies is allowed to park there. So that's police enforcement.
So then, Ed, after those hours that you described before, which I know that they are tentative, like after 5 o'clock, so then nobody's allowed to park in there?
Yes.
Anybody can park there.
Okay, so then if we're removing the
But-
meters, the
but
meters
those-
are not in effect after that hour, but then during, like we just said
Those
before,
hours, you don't feed the meter anyway.
so then what happens on Saturday?
So Saturday would probably be loading again, and then the evening hours and Sunday hours when you don't have to feed the meter, it goes back to free parking.
Okay.
We're also looking at the Park mobile app, so potentially those spots on Saturday could be Park mobile app only.
Can I ask a question? Are we voting, or is this resolution is purely about the ability to establish loading zones? It's not actually establishing the first loading zones, right?
Because currently your code allows the chief to do that with his discretion. So he's coming in to tell you of the loading zones now that he's looking to establish. And at the same time, you're hearing comments on a proposed revision to that procedure where he would be coming in to make recommendations. So until and unless your local law is passed and in effect, he has the absolute discretion to establish loading zones in accordance with your code. So right
Thanks
now,
for asking us, Chief. That's nice.
We
So
didn't
we
think-
have to right now.
I prefer to.
it's good.
Want to make
It's
sure
good
we're
to
all on
be
the
the
same
king. It's
page.
good to be the king. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think the chief understood that he actually had that power. And we've been coordinating back and forth on the draft of this law. And he was like, wait a minute, you mean I have the right at this time? Yes, you do.
Yeah.
So
I don't want too much power. That's
trying to
okay.
broaden it to provide the ultimate flexibility and to be sure the public understands that it's the board will be establishing these and making changes based upon, boots in the ground information. And the chief.
Laura Lee, this does
Conduit.
expand it, doesn't it? I mean, before he had the discretion only on Cedar and Main, right?
Yeah,
Now we can say we want to do it on,
Anyway,
right,
Ashford.
on Hamilton Avenue or Jefferson, right? So,
Right.
okay.
Right.
So it does
So-
expand.
But tonight, if we're only talking about that part, we can focus on that part. And then for the specific zones that you're proposing, we have a survey out that already has a bunch of responses from the businesses. But maybe at the next meeting, when we actually are voting on that, we redo the presentation where we have the map of where the zones are so that everyone on the board is clear what we're talking about, because they showed us that, but it was a while ago. And then post that on the website too, so that people can see it, the public can see it better, and it's easily accessible, like where the proposed zones are.
we'll do a Google Earth shot and just highlight the spaces on it or something like that.
right.
But one thing that we also have to focus on is proper guidance and directions for the delivery trucks so that they know that there is a loading zone that exists, because we fail on having directional signage, as 99 City is our best example. In addition to that, the enforcement, Rick, as Donna mentioned, is going to be crucial, because it's not only the double parking of the trucks making the delivery, but the consistency of people really double parking on City and Main, picking up food in the restaurants, and it has become a norm in those two streets.
So we thought, there was never really an enforcement going on for double parking. I think maybe because it would hurt the businesses if we ticketed the trucks. But now the idea would be, if you approve this, the police force would give out warnings to the trucks, in the beginning, and tell them that there are now loading zones and where they are, so that they start using them. And then after, a warning to each one of them, we would start enforcing. And then we would enforce with the passenger vehicles as well.
And the law is drafted, so it's to permit any vehicle actively loading goods or merchandise. So technically, if you're picking up a to-go platter from ABC, you can use this loading zone instead of double parking. And you might have to walk a half a block, but
No, that's not how it works. It is commercial loading or unloading. That's how this is defined, which does not go for my car, because it's not
commercial. If you look at the text of the law, I broadened it, and it just says the active. It says actively loading or unloading goods or merchandise. So I wanted to be sure that the restaurants would benefit from this as well, for the lunch crowd or for the early supper crowd where you're picking up to go. So, it's to alleviate double parking. So certainly a passenger car could pull in here to pick up goods from a restaurant, or a takeout order from the pharmacy, or anything. So we're trying to alleviate a known impact.
Well, if that's the case, if it wouldn't be too confusing, we might want to extend the hours of the loading zone to, 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. To facilitate pickup of carryout. Particularly since the restaurants are likely to do a lot less indoor dining, there'll be more demand for, pickup and less for parking.
I actually think it's a bad idea to open it up to passenger cars. I think the problem is that then they're just going to be full all the time.
Take a look at the statute, though. It says here, D, for loading of delivery vehicles, restricted for the active unloading and loading of delivery vehicles. So, see that?
Right, because the first one says if you're actively loading or unloading. So if I'm a delivery vehicle because I'm picking up food, I'm technically a delivery vehicle, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to work for the police for enforcement, because, how do they know? If you park a passenger vehicle in there, how do they know what they're doing? They can come out, and say anything.
But I really think that the challenge that we have in terms of the pickup really happens during dinner time. I live down here, so I know. It is where, the corner of City and Main become very congested with Sushi Mike, getting restaurant pickup. So maybe it might be reasonable to just properly label the signage, as Trustee Taylor mentioned, and then make it that after maybe a certain hours that it's no longer commercial vehicles, but it's also open for pickup at restaurants. Is that legal? Can we do that?
I think we're overthinking this. The idea of a commercial loading and unloading zone is very simple. It's used everywhere. And now we're trying to solve all kinds of congestion problems with this one thing. And it's just, it shouldn't be that. It should be, how do we help solve the delivery of goods, commercial goods?
And we
just pick that one thing, and it's not going to solve all the congestion problems in Duff Ferry. It's going to help a little bit. It's going to keep trucks off the streets. People are still going to double park and let their kids out so they can go to the, bagel shop or whatever. I mean, no one's ever going to stop that. But I think if we allow cars to park where trucks are supposed to be to unload goods, those spots are never going to be available when they're needed. So
I agree with Mike.
Yeah.
When it comes to the restaurants, we can always look at that later on when the parklets are gone. I mean, we might be able to do something in those areas for the restaurants, but
we do have 30-minute spots in front of a lot of the restaurants, and right now they're 15 minutes. So we have those spots already designated so that there's high turnover and people don't stay, so that people can make pickups. So
And we have put
being
cones, and we have put cones in the corner of Cedar and Main, and we still have a corner full of double parking cars and cars blocking the sidewalk, and it's always a problem. So it's really, it is a problem that we have, and if we can try to find a double solution, I'm just thinking that during dinner time is a problem, and it would be only a matter of doing signage. But let's try it with the commercial vehicles first, and then we can take it from here and see where it takes us.
when you're talking about this corner of Cedar and Main, I don't know what happened to it, probably didn't work out, but we had been talking about having a couple of spaces in the Oak Street parking lot set aside for pickup. I don't know what happened to that, Rick. I know we tried it and probably just never flew. Do you know what I'm talking about? Those spaces in the Oak Street lot?
Yeah, I didn't really catch up or take off, and
Yeah,
we were having some issues with at the corner of Main and Cedar. So
yeah,
some of my industrious supervisors were attempting to rectify that, and we put some cones out to deter the vehicles parking on that intersection.
yeah. I'm just saying, if we could free up some spaces in Oak Street, that might be a place for those people to go. Or if we tried it and it didn't work, then it didn't work, but.
I agree. Let's start with addressing the commercial aspect of it, and then we could, if we have to do something else, we'll try something else. So,
Can I ask a different question, please?
sure.
So these are new loading zones. Are we approving them like permanently? Is it like a test run, like try it for 6 months, make sure it's working, and then you're going to come back and say it's great, it's been successful, or it's not, and then we revisit?
This isn't actually, are we even voting on the actual zones today, or are we voting on the language to allow the zones to be then voted on in the next meeting? Yes.
I think the next meeting, you'll be voting on it. We'll get that all together and make those commercial corrections to this law. But, you know, anytime we do something like this, it's permanent usually. And then if it turns out that, you know, it's not working, we just come back and change the law.
How do we change it? Like once it's implemented,
But-
is it just like we can just do another resolution? Is it something more specific?
Yeah, the law is going to establish the procedure whereby the chief will be making recommendations based upon factual instances in the need. And then once that law is changed, then you'll be able to establish the loading zones by resolution and change them by resolution based upon recommendations from the chief. So the chief will be
With a public hearing every time, or?
no, a resolution alone. Once this public hearing establishes the law and the procedure, then you'll be able to revisit the location and placement of loading zones and establishing loading zones by resolution. Right now, there's no need for a public airing. The chief could go out tomorrow and establish a loading zone. That's how your code reads. So this provides a two-step process and gives you the ability to talk about it publicly, to seek polling, to ask advice from your business owners, your commercial centers.
Any other questions from the board? Jennifer, is anybody from the public who wants to speak?
Yes, we have one resident with their hands raised. Rob, can you hear us?
Sure, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Great, okay. Oh, the camera did not come on. Thank you. I would just hope that I think the loading zone is a great idea. I would just ask that the board consider charging, just like every other vehicle that's using our curbs in the downtown, for the privilege of loading and unloading. That's it. Thank you.
Do we know if other communities do that?
Yeah, there are. there are plenty of cities that do it. You know,
Cities.
well, I mean, I'm just, you know, I don't know about towns. I mean, I think our Main Street is probably just as dense as many cities, if not more. But you know, we are incurring a cost here, and that's enforcement, additional enforcement. And so I think that there should be some way that that's paid for. So thank you.
Well, we certainly can look at that down the road, and if we can see some sample mechanism for doing that.
Yeah, who would you charge? That's the thing I don't know.
I
Kind
guess
of like when they get a ticket, that's part of the reason why it's so difficult to enforce the double parking is when you get a ticket, you're ticketing the truck and not the business who's getting the delivery, and it makes it like gives a contentious relationship between the delivery and the business or something like.
Yeah.
And then that was what I read. Someone was saying that like when they ticket these delivery guys, the delivery guys don't want to report it to their bosses and get in trouble. So then they end up eating the tickets themselves and they're already struggling as delivery people. It's a whole.
That's terrible. I was thinking of UPS where they just tear them up, I think. I don't know. But you're right.
Mayor, we do have one more person with their hand raised.
Okay.
Patty, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you very much. I think this is a terrific idea. Thank you, Chief Rick, for pushing it forward. I think, you know, when you drive through town, you find those big trucks there. It really makes it unsafe and it causes congestion. And I think at least trying this out is, I think it's wonderful. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
You can insert the word commercial into your proposed law, and you could pass it as revised if following the close of the hearing, you'd like to move in that direction.
I think we should put the word commercial. I don't know how everybody else feels about that.
It would be in section D. It would be before the words delivery vehicles, which are underlined. It would say commercial delivery vehicles.
Are we okay with it, with amending that, everybody?
Yeah, I guess, Mr. Manley, Chief Guevara, what is do you agree that's the right solution or to have cars, passenger cars?
Definitely think it's the right thing to do because, you know, it'd be a problem enforcing passenger cars in there. How about you, Rick?
I agree. Yeah, I agree, Mike. It's, you know, baby steps. Let's put this in place, see how this works. We can always revisit it.
Don't we need to make a change? I'm sorry, Vinny.
Oh,
Don't we need to make a change to A also then, Laura Lee?
I don't think so. I think that you know, that was already in your code, the word no vehicle shall be backed up. So if I delineated commercial vehicle, then I guess passenger vehicles would feel that they could, you know, I'd have to change the wording completely.
But on D, it's also restricted to 8 a.m. to 11 a.m.
At a minimum. That's in your code now. At a minimum, it would be restricted for morning deliveries. So this.
Oh, and then the next time we're gonna get the loading zone direction and the time for that loading zone.
Yes, that's what the chief will present at the next meeting. In accordance with the new procedure, he'll come in with the locations and the times, and then you'll pass that by resolution, and he can then remove the parking meters and put up the appropriate signage. We can add in A, after goods or merchandise, you can say for commercial purposes. That would solve A as well as D.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's clear so there's no confusion. Whatever you recommend.
In the end, it's all about the sign, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a kind of standard sign for that.
Yep.
Okay, so is there a motion to close the public hearing? Trustee Sullivan, second, Trustee Patino, all in favor? Okay, the public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to amend the Village of Dobbs Ferry Code as outlined in the proposed resolution and also to include the word commercial vehicle in section D? Is there a motion? trustee Sullivan, second trustee Nell. All in favor? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Let's move to our next public hearing, which is a public hearing to consider a local law clarifying parking restrictions and amending the date parameters for the annual village parking permits. Rick, do you want to start off with this?
Yes, Mayor. I had mentioned last time, we're just looking to streamline our permit sales. Currently, they run February to February, and we're just looking to tie everything into the calendar year, and it'd just be a lot easier for our logistics. And talking with Jeff and Ed, we thought that we could prorate the amount for this coming year to account for the shortened 2020 for those who may have made purchases for permits. So that was the purpose of this, is really to just bring in all the permits that we sell, commuter, residential, central business district, residential, non-residential, recreation, to just flow with the calendar year, January to December versus February 14th of, say, 2021 to February 13th of 2022. It's kind of makes things line up nicely with the calendar year.
Do you have any idea how this started with February 14th?
I do not know.
Anybody?
I have no idea. We have not been able to run that down. That has been the way it's been since I got here in '97, and I have no answer for that.
Perhaps it's because we had a cap on the amount of permits that went out, and you do it on January 1st to go people away for the holidays, et cetera, but if we're not putting a cap on it.
I don't
That
know.
would be my guess as well.
We did not have a cap when I first came here in '97. It was just, we were sold, and I don't remember anything. That was kind of instilled later on, unless I'm mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah, just that's the way it's been.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Jen, I think there's one person raising their hand.
Correct.
Okay.
Stephen, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, and I'm sorry, can you state your name and your address for the record? I forgot to say
Sure.
that earlier.
No problem. It's Stephen Campanaro, 129 Main Street, Dobbs Ferry, New York. So I wanted to bring to the board's attention that this can have an economic impact on our downtown residents. By switching over the permits to January, what you're doing is you're asking the residents, some who are not very wealthy, to fork over hundreds of dollars during the holiday season.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not very equitable. It's not like we can charge these permits. So now all of a sudden, here we are January 1st, and instead of maybe buying gifts for your family, you got to pay over hundreds of dollars to the town. So that's something the board really needs to take into consideration. Also, the board should take into consideration the time of the year. As a downtown resident, we do not have access to a garage. So when it comes time to taking these permits off, and doing it in February is not good. It's the coldest months. We have to, in the freezing cold, try to pull off these permits, these brittle permits. We have no water to wash the salt off our car to get the permits back on. June would make much more sense. It's 6 months into the year. It's a warmer weather, and it's easier for the downtown residents. So I just ask that the board take that into consideration.
So Stephen, you're saying that we should do this effective June 1st rather than January 1st.
Hold on, I took him off. Hold on. I'm sorry.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Chief, what do you think?
I've never actually heard that people having difficulty with these permits, whether they were sold in February or January. So that would be the first time I've heard that that would be an issue, removing or adding a sticker. certainly understanding the hardship Mr. Campanaro mentioned. What was one of the thought patterns is that we would prorate these stickers by 2 months less than the annual for 2021 to try to assist with the, again, the sudden change on these permit sales. And again, their annual permits, we do get some confusion with the people understanding with the way the permits carry into the new year. So then we would be creating a permit that's kind of spanning 2 years. So trying to make it simple.
Keith, are you moving to a permit system that's online where residents can now pay with a credit card
Yes,
instead of check or
that
cash?
is and that is what we've been working on is while this is going on, as we're attempting to get our permit sales, especially with the pandemic, moved to online purchases, which would go through the village website, and the permits would be done that way via credit card to limit the interaction that the residents have outside of initially this first year. They would still have to pick up a permit at police headquarters, but we would eliminate those long queues that we used to have coming out of Village Hall so that people could pick up their annual permits. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we're going to see something kind of unfold and we'll have this working, I'm hoping, soon.
Yeah, I also had a bit of a concern about the timing because of the holidays. So, but if we can do the charge cuts, that might help. As far as moving it to June, I think that's just going to complicate things because of our recreation permits and our non-residential recreation permits that will just go totally crazy.
Believe it or not, your code actually now says residential parking permits are valid for the calendar year. That's not the provision you're changing. You're changing to have the residential parking permits, which are valid for a calendar year, believe it or not, under your section that's actually existing. And what you're changing is to coincide your waterfront parking lot permits to also be the calendar year. So you're not changing the residential parking permits.
No, I was talking about the park permits, the recreational permits.
Those
starting like May.
Right.
What the gentleman had suggested was changing the date to June 1. And I was just explaining why I don't think we should change it to June 1, because that would really throw the recreation permits off.
And I guess what I'm also saying is I'm answering the gentleman by letting him know it already is a calendar year and they're already due on the first of the year. What we're proposing by this local law is changing the recreation and commuter lot parking at the waterfront to be the same calendar year that already exists for the residential parking. You're not changing residential parking to calendar year. It already is a calendar year.
And Mr. Campanaro does have his hand raised again.
Good.
Hold on one second, sorry.
Actually, I just wanted to, talk about Gloria just mentioned, because she is correct. When I read the law, subsection F is the clause that deals with the central business permit. However, when this public meeting opened, it was said that this was one of the permits that they wanted to change to the calendar year. Central Business District runs from February 14th to February 13th the following year. So it's a little unclear based off the statutory changes whether the Central Business District would be included with this new calendar year change. So there's clarification needed there. Regarding the cost, the prorating, sure, that resolves this year's problem, but it doesn't resolve next year's problem. And we've been talking a lot in our community about diversity. Well, diversity goes beyond race. It goes also with economics. And that's what the board needs to consider. We have economic diversity in the downtown area. I live amongst the people in the downtown area. A lot of them cannot afford to be hit with what really is a large village fee right at the holiday season. So if we're going to include, or if it's going to be proposed to include the business district permits, that's going to be a problem. Paying by credit card doesn't resolve that problem. All you're doing is making it so now that they got to pay interest on that parking permit at 20% interest on their credit cards for the next few months. So it really doesn't resolve that problem. As for moving it to June, I know it could create more confusion. I don't think it creates any more confusion than February. I think this law was passed by people who don't live in the downtown district. I know many of you probably don't hear about the issue of putting the permits on, but stand outside with no gloves on, when the wind chill's below freezing, trying to peel a sticker off your car. It's not a fun experience, especially when that lot is also filled with snow and you got people who are vying for your parking spot. Park in the downtown district's been a major area for this, a problem for this village for a long time. I've been there 15 years. And, you know, this whole permit issue just makes it that much worse for us downtown residents. And that's why moving it to June or some warmer month would definitely be a solution to make things easier for us downtown residents.
What is done in neighbor communities? Chief, what is the standard timeline or time frame?
Their annual permits is my understanding. I can get you specific from some of the other villages north of us. Hastings, believe it, there's an annual. I'll get the actual dates for you, but they don't have a parking lot that is our size. And certainly as you go further north with, say, Croton, they have much larger parking. My understanding is that that's on the annual calendar, but I can confirm that for you, Mara.
And I can't stress enough, your code already has the central business district, the residential parking on an annual calendar.
Yes.
In other words, I don't know how it's been administered over the past few years, but I did not change that provision of your code because it already says that residential parking permits are on an annual calendar basis. So I don't know, you've been maybe issuing them in February, maybe issuing them in April. So what in response to the resident, if what you're looking to do is change it to a calendar year that starts in June, from June for everything, then, you know, we'll have to find a way to catch up the waterfront parking, which now will expire at the end of February. So, you know, there'd have to be like a little interim step. So the central business district and the residential parking is already a calendar year. I don't know when it's issued or how it's issued, but your code calls for it to be a calendar year.
So I think, you know, just to address what we initially decide, you know, what this law is directed to address, I think rather than make it more complicated and so we can resolve a simple issue, I'd like to move forward with this. Are there any other comments from the board? Okay.
I'm in favor of bringing consistency.
Yeah.
I think it's a fair point about the holidays. So I mean, if there's a way for us to discuss, like if it makes more sense to a different date, we're not going to do it today, obviously. To have the permit schedule be the same as our fiscal year, which I think is June 1st to May 31st, that might make sense. And just looking at a quick look at some other neighboring villages, they seem to be on that kind of schedule, like Scarsdale and I don't know, North Shore, whoever. But so maybe it's something we want to take up because I think Mr. Campanero raised some fair points, and I don't want to see people feeling like they have to struggle just to pay to park at our train station. We're lucky to live in a village where everyone really who wants to park there can, because so many other communities have long wait lists. But I think it's something we should take under advisement and consider at a future date.
Yeah, but I certainly think that all the permits should be on the same schedule. I think that makes a lot more sense, whatever date we choose.
Yes. Whatever makes it easy for the residents to know and the police to know, and consistency is key.
It would seem to me that January 1st would be the easiest for everyone to know and consistency.
Yeah, I think that, you know, I mean, there's a tax bill that comes at the beginning of January. You know, there are plans for large expenses, and it makes accommodations for those. So I understand that it could be a concern for some people, but I also think that it's part of, it's part of financial planning. And as to the second part, maybe this is not how everyone does it, but I don't have a garage. I just put the sticker on top of the other sticker. I mean, it's not really a hardship to do it in February, and I've never really considered it as such. So I don't know why we'd want to put it in the summer just so you could do it when you're in your shorts. You just do it with a pair of gloves on. So I think that it's makes sense to pull the payment in line with the calendar year issuance and validity. And so I'd like to move ahead with that.
Yeah, so is there I'd like to, unless there's a consensus not to move ahead with it, I'd like to close the public hearing and vote on this issue. So. Okay.
Well, I mean, are we open to hearing? I understand what Mike said, but we're going to take it under consideration for another time, or is this it? Because that changes how I view this.
I would say this is it for the foreseeable future, unless you try doing this down the road in a year or two. So, I mean, is anyone else in agreement with Nicole? I'm happy to put it over if you want to. So if anyone else is in agreement with Nicole, we can do that.
I mean, I don't, I mean, would it make sense to, or maybe not, but rather than moving everything January, would it make sense to move everything to the 14th to get everything on? Only because, like, Mike, it's not the cold that's the concern for me. The concern for me is the tax, as Mike said, the tax bills that are due, the Christmas bill. I don't know if this would create a hardship or not on people.
But this is only changing, Laura Lee, the waterfront, correct?
Yeah, that's an expensive bill.
It's changing the waterfront to coincide with that which already exists for the residential parking.
Right.
So if we were talking about changing it to June, we'd have to redo all of them to June.
Yeah.
And that's a different conversation. And at this point, the chief is just trying to simplify what we have. But that maybe in the future, we could relook at when it is for all of them, if it's a financial hardship to do it. But like Mike said, I mean, you do have to plan for the expenses that come up, and this is one of them, and it comes up currently in February, so it's not really that far off. And switching it to June would just be a bigger switch. I feel like right now the chief has the recommendation, and I support his recommendation.
It would affect it's the annual commuter, recreation, the central business district, resident, non-resident, and the artsy. Those are all those permits all fall like in a February to February. We have the other permit that's at residential for the side streets, Palisade, Oak, that's a calendar year. We're looking to bring everything in together as one on the calendar year.
Right, but if at some point down the road we wanted to move everything to the fiscal year, I mean, that wouldn't bother the police either, as long as it was all the same, right?
Correct.
Like, if we had thought of this issue prior to this and suggested that, maybe that's what we would be considering today. That's all I'm saying. I don't think we should wait 2 years to fix a problem that was raised that's valid and really isn't that complicated to fix. I mean, you could even just give out 6-month permits for now and then do it again and do annual ones in June.
Well, we'd have to decide if it really was a problem, but we can decide that down the road. There's no time.
Well, let me ask you a question. The chief, the expiration on all of the permits, the downtown or central business district parking and the waterfront ones are currently February 2021, correct?
Correct. So what will be?
I don't see that.
Will expire on February 13th.
Well, no, it's on the back of the cars, Lori Lee. Whatever the current legislation says, the annual period that's picked is the 14th of February to the 14th of February. Is that correct, Chief?
Correct.
Waterfront parking.
So, at least in terms of this year, anyone who has an existing permit wouldn't have to buy another one until February.
That's correct.
Right?
Correct. And then when they would purchase,
they buy 10 months, it would be prorated.
That's correct.
So at least we avoid the hardship this year, which is probably a more difficult year than most let's hope for many people. It gives us some time to sort this out, to make sure that the payment things are if we can work that out. And it wouldn't force anyone who now has a permit to have to, save in the next 6 weeks to pay for they'd have 10 months to plan for next January. So in effect, what you're suggesting is kind of a compromise between these two.
Yes.
Good point.
And Mr. Campanaro has his hand raised.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking for clarification because when it comes to this law, you guys are stating that the statute does not propose a February 1st date for central business parking permits. I'm looking right at the statute, and subsection F, which is labeled the central business parking, states that that will be issued on February 1st of each year for a period including February 14th of the following year. I reviewed your red line revisions, and it doesn't seem that subsection F is in any way affected by the change in the statute. So your proposal, if you keep the language the way it is going to result in having the business district renewing in February and everybody else renewing January 1st. So I think everybody just sort of needs to get on the same page and look at the statute unless I'm missing something. As for the comment regarding money, I have heard everybody say, well, it's not that much money. Keep in mind that the people who live in the downtown district are renters. Most of them are. And some of these people make minimum wage. That's a lot of money for people who make minimum wage. Some of the workers who work in that area make minimum wage. So I just ask that that be taken into account for those people. They're my neighbors, and I don't want to see them get hurt because they can't afford to park in the downtown district. But more importantly is the whole thing of the statute. If you guys are going to make this change, it needs to be consistent. And I look at subsection F, and it looks like you guys are missing something there. There's a disconnect.
Subsection F of what section? Because I'm looking at section 290-46 residential parking, which refers to central business district permits and says it's a calendar year. So perhaps I'm confused, and I would love for you to tell me.
He's talking about section 290-27 municipal parking areas.
Okay.
Correct.
There might have been I don't know if it should have been consistent when we put in that residential parking permit, because that was something we adopted a couple of years ago. Maybe there's an inconsistency in the code that we need to fix.
Yes, it appears there is. Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out.
You're welcome.
Why don't we put this over and then we can clarify it the next time.
So don't close the public hearing, and we can, if you put it over to your meeting on the 15th, then we can complete a review of a revised document at that time.
Right, so we will adjourn this. Do I have a motion to adjourn this public hearing to December 15th, 2020?
But if we wanted to change it, Laura Lee, to June, the fiscal year for all the permits, would we have to notice a new public hearing, or could we do that in the context of this public hearing?
That would be a substantive change, and I would suggest that you'd have to renotice that because there would have to be some provision for us to do the end of February to the July 1st date to collect a temporary permit. We'd have to provide a sort of gap provision, which is easy to do, and I'm happy to do that. But if you want to go with the calendar year, I have that. If there's a consensus to shelve this and go to the fiscal year, then I'm happy to provide a draft of a local law. I think we still have time to notice a public hearing for the 15th. If not, and your local paper, which has deadlines, we can use the Journal News for that.
That's my preference. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
Donna, how do you feel?
I'd like to think about it a bit. I mean, I don't know which date is. I do think that making people for the waterfront come up with $450 in January 1st is tough.
Okay, Larry, how do you feel?
I mean, I think this year, as I said before, at least for the transition year, they wouldn't have to buy a new permit until the permit on their bumper expires, which is in February. So I would be okay with it, although I don't object to the idea of considering dates later in the year if there really is a feeling that that provides more financial flexibility to people.
Christy?
I have a question about whether or not it's beneficial in any way to do it with the fiscal year. From like Jeff's standpoint, is there any, does it impact anything whether it's January or June?
Just the first year you would have the 4-month period from February to June. You'd have to sell for permits, and you have a bit of an expenditure for stickers and whatnot. But fiscal year versus calendar year for me is either one.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there is a reason that other municipalities do it on the fiscal year that could be beneficial, and if not, then
then the revenue for those permits are all within the fiscal year. That's most likely why they would want to use the fiscal year.
what does that mean? That why
It's matching the time frame. It's an accounting theory.
potentially slightly easier?
For me, either way.
So I could go either way then. I mean, I feel like if there was a reason that was beneficial to the village to do it in June versus January, otherwise it's either it's simplifying the parking process and people have to prepare for paying for, I mean, it sucks to pay it no matter when I pay it. I mean, when I paid it now, but now I'm not commuting. And so I don't know, I just feel like it sucks no matter when it is, in all honesty, so.
The real question is we can't put it over, we can't decide at the next public hearing to put it to June 1st unless we properly notice that. So that's why I'm going to people right now to see how they feel. So Mike, how do you feel about it?
I wasn't clear before, then I think we should pull it in line with the calendar year. I heard the arguments. I think, as Christy mentioned, it's a difficult expense no matter what. So.
Laura?
I empathize with some of the comments that they have been brought up, but I like the idea of making it calendar year. Anything towards consistency in order for us to be more efficient. I think that I leaning more towards having that January to December.
Okay, and I also understand the thought process, but I think making it January 1st seems to make more sense for me. So I think we can put it over as it is until December 15th. Put over the public hearing, adjourn the public hearing until December 15th. Is there a motion to adjourn this public hearing? Trustee DeRozzi, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? It passes unanimously. So the public hearing is adjourned. Okay, we have a presentation from Mr. Holzinger regarding from Groundwork Hudson.
Mr. Holzinger, can you hear us?
Good evening, trustees, and good evening, viewers. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time and inviting me to present to the board. I will just take a few minutes of your time to review some of the work of the Summer River Coalition, specifically in Dobbs Ferry, and discuss the renewed memorandum of understanding that we are asking all members of the Sawmill Watershed Advisory Board to sign. So you can see the presentation, right? Slide deck.
Yes.
Okay, so again, my name is Oded Holzinger. I am the manager of the Rivers and Trails program at Groundwork Hudson Valley, an environmental organization based in Yonkers. So I would like to start by thanking all of you and specifically Ed for representing the village of Dobbs Ferry at the Sawmill Watershed Advisory Board, which is a major body bringing together municipalities from all over the Sawmill River watershed to work together to promote watershed scale solutions to some of the watershed scale problems that the Sawmill River is facing. The SWAB was created by County Legislator Mary Jane Shimsky in 2011. And that was following a mid-2000 memorandum of understanding that the Sawmill River Coalition promoted throughout the SWAB members that we are now asking to renew the commitment to. So just to clarify what the coalition is and what the SWAB is, Groundwork Hudson Valley, you might know us through our science barge on the Hudson River waterfront in downtown Yonkers. We also have a quite famous youth leadership program called the Green Team, where we hire youth from Yonkers to do environmental restoration work. And then alongside the Center for the Urban River at BZEC of Sarah Lawrence College, we also manage the Sawmill River Coalition program. The main responsibilities of the Sawmill River Coalition is coordinating some of the SWAB meetings, watershed quality monitoring program run by the Sarah Lawrence College Center for the Urban River at BZEC, a river stewardship program that is actually pretty active in Dobbs Ferry, and our annual Great Sawmill River Cleanup. We have 6 main focus areas. Those are stormwater management, water quality, habitat restoration, access and recreation, stakeholder coordination, and community engagement and stewardship. And the SWAB, the Sawmill Watershed Advisory Board, working under the Westchester County Board of Legislators, includes the 12 watershed municipalities. You can see them listed there. And as well as Westchester County Department of Planning. So as I mentioned, between 2004 and 2007, we were able to get the 12 watershed municipalities to sign a memorandum of agreement in respect to the Sawmill River watershed. And that memorandum of agreement was the first step towards working together and thinking about the health and well-being of the river and the watershed from a watershed-wide scale, instead of local solutions that can often just take the problems, if it's sediments and flooding, and push them further downstream. In 2014, we also created a Sawmill River Recreation Area, looking mainly at the area from the Woodlands Lake and VMAC Park and down to Yonkers, identifying potential access and recreation locations and how they could be developed. Last year in 2019, we published the State of the Watershed report reviewing the state of the river and the watershed when it comes mainly to habitat, stormwater management, and water quality. And just a few months ago, we finalized a 5-year action plan that is supposed to give us some good planning for the activity of the coalition through 2025. The plan, which is available on the Sawmill River Coalition website, it looks at the 6 focus areas, and for each focus areas, it lists some potential strategies and tasks and also examples to benefit those fields. And we hope that all the partners of the Sawmill River Coalition, including the SWAB members, will make use of this plan when preparing grant proposals for stormwater management, for access and recreation, everything within the watershed. So all these documents are part of our way to create a path towards large-scale restoration projects. And in the river restoration world, the holy grail towards being able to implement larger restoration projects is create a comprehensive watershed management plan. And that creation of that plan is going to take some time and it will cost some money. So as we're preparing to apply for this funding, we wanted to create those basic documents, reviewing the state of the watershed, putting down the plan for the next 5 years. And we actually received last year support letters from all the municipalities, including Dobbs Ferry, that also included some match commitment. We did put a proposal out there for a local waterfront revitalization program. We unfortunately did not get it, and we're now working with Westchester County Department of Planning, that actually was the submitter of that proposal, to re-strategize for how we can create a new proposal that would hopefully this time get funded. And so to do that, we realized that the old memorandum of understanding is already 15 years old, and we want to create this renewed memorandum of understanding, renewed commitment, as we're applying for funding for greater projects. The watershed management plan will include a comprehensive analysis of the stormwater throughout the watershed. It would include mapping floodplain and wetland restoration opportunities. Eventually, where there is available land that could be more efficient in retaining excess water instead of those excess water going into residential streets or the parkway. Identifying water quality or contamination hotspots, and also identifying additional opportunities for access and recreation. And so this is why we're now pushing this renewed memorandum of understanding. The memorandum of understanding, which was sent to the village administration, includes as an attachment to it, it includes as a schedule, it includes the original memorandum of understanding, of course. Now, in addition to the renewed commitment to that older memorandum of understanding, we also decided to include in this letter of renewed commitment 3 actions that the village can choose to fill in the text in there. So the idea is to create a document that is actionable, so that the funding agencies will see that we're talking about municipalities that are actively working to benefit the state of the river. So this is just 2 examples, one from Hastings and one from Ardsley. And you can see that the local actions that they are committing to are, generally speaking, projects that are already happening, already in the plans. And through this commitment letter, we're making sure that, for example, a local waterfront revitalization program will also address issues along the Sawmill River. Now, regarding the stewardship program, just to review it quickly, we currently have 6 active projects in downtown Yonkers and northeast Yonkers, along the South County Trail in Hastings on Hudson, as well as in Dobbs Ferry. Chauncey Park, our latest and very exciting project in Dobbs Ferry. We have one in Ardsley, as well as a group active up in Pleasantville. So this is just some images from the Sawmill River, the South County Trail restoration sites in Dobbs Ferry. You can see here a river bend just south of Lawrence Street, where our groups came in and cleared it and beautified it, as well as the bridge. This is the bridge of the Parkway, crossing from what is Chauncey Park to the South County Trail area. And this beautiful cave that our steward, Steve Puccillo from Hastings, revealed and uncovered and turned it into a really beautiful site. This is just north of Lawrence Street. And it's a really magical spot where the river kind of enters into a tunnel through the rock. So I highly recommend if you haven't seen it yet. And then the exciting project known as Chauncey Park in Dobbs Ferry that I'm sure many of you heard. And I want to also thank Ed for his great support of this project. So this project is in this area just north of Rivertown Square. And this area is, generally speaking, comprised of 3 parcels. Down here, it's a village-owned parcel. And up here, it's also a local village-owned park, somewhat unknown. And then the vast majority of the area is owned by state DOT. So we have a group of residents, mostly from Dobbs Ferry, working to apply for purchasing, have the village purchase for essentially no cost this excess New York State DOT land, so it could be connected with the 2 other parcels and create one continuous park for passive recreation. And then we also have, we conducted several site tours, and we had 2 really awesome restoration events, one both in September, one where we cleared some invasive species, and then the following 2 weeks later we came in and we planted about 80 trees and shrubs that are riparian and healthy for the floodplain, and eventually make the floodplain be more efficient at retaining floodwater. This project consists 3 general focus areas. One is the floodplain restoration along the river bank. The other is this old carriageway that you can see here in the image that we would like to restore and celebrate the history of the old community of Chauncey. And then the third target work area will be looking at the access points to this area and making sure that the residents feel comfortable about those access points and that they are clean and safe to access. In the next few months, we're hoping to get more and more of those signed, renewed municipal commitment letters, the renewed memorandum of understanding. We're developing a model stewardship guide to help new stewardship groups start restoration projects. We're also working through the Sawmill Watershed Advisory Board to identify potential restoration opportunities at large construction sites. For example, maybe some of you saw what's going on in Pleasantville right now, where they narrowed down a lane. There's going to be a lot of construction happening there, also at Reverendsdale Bridge in Dobbs Ferry. So, you know, you have heavy machinery coming in along the South County Trail, along the river, and we want to make sure that when those projects are over, we restore the natural habitat at the site. We have different community engagement meetings. Last week we had a wonderful stewardship walkthrough, and in the winter we're planning to have a virtual community engagement meeting for the upper watershed communities, mainly in Mount Pleasant. the Summer River Coalition newsletters, as well as other forms of community engagement through our fresh and new website. And we will also be working with Westchester County Department of Planning to strategize for the next proposal for a local waterfront revitalization program, through which we hope to develop a watershed management plan. Right now, there is a lot of, there is quite a large lack of clarity when it comes to this state funding. But what we're thinking about is segmenting it to different parts, so it will be smaller amounts of money and spread it out along the years. So that's it. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions regarding any of the coalition activity or one of the stewardship projects, or of course the memorandum of understanding, you can ask them now or reach me at any other time.
It looks great. I have to say the work that you guys have been doing on the South County Trail looks amazing. I love walking over there or riding my bike over there. It's great. And Chauncey Park looks like it's a great opportunity to really make that something special. Like you said, not many people know about it yet, but I think if people realize it, it's going to be a very popular destination. So Ed, with regard to the memorandum of understanding, I'm assuming that those three conditions you've reviewed and we feel comfortable that we can certainly follow through on that?
I have filled in the letter with the three conditions that the commitment letter that they're asking for, and I will share that with you to approve for signing. And the other commitment letter that is being renewed, you've already seen, so that you could approve for reassigning. And you know, the whole 5-year action plan is a great work. I had a couple of questions just to of Oded for clarification. And you know, and there's some parts in the action plan where it, you know, under stakeholders and municipality, and you're talking about funding and committing to funding. What is the village's role in that?
So I'm not sure exactly which task you're referring to, but I will say that, and the introduction of the action plan also clarifies it, that this action plan is of course non-binding, and in many ways it is aspirational, and is more of a guide to nonprofits and local municipalities within the watershed, members in the Summer River Coalition, to apply for funding and use that action plan as a guide so that everything is well coordinated. And of course, none of it could be binding when we're talking about 5 years down the line. I think that when it comes to the villages and the towns, the main expectations we have, so there is the match requirement that has to do with the proposal for the local waterfront revitalization program. And once we have a new proposal, once we start working on a new proposal, we'll of course reach out to each municipality and work with them to figure out what the best way to get to this matching is. From the last time we worked on that proposal, it was mainly through, you know, Department of Public Works doing cleanups and removing fallen trees and things like that, as well as through hours spent by village administrators going to SWAB meetings and so on. And then other than that, we mainly are asking the municipalities to work in coordination with the coalition on the stewardship side. And that is something that I can definitely say are doing successfully in Dobbs Ferry when it comes to the Chauncey Park initiative.
Laura Lee, do I need a motion to sign this, to authorize the village administrator to sign this letter?
Yes, you do.
So is there a motion to authorize the village administrator to sign this letter of renewed commitment to memorandum of agreement with respect to the Somo River watershed? Trustee Sullivan, second trustee Patino, all in favor? And that passes unanimously. So we're going to sign it, and we're happy to support you guys, and thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate your support.
Our pleasure. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move to courtesy of the floor. Is there anybody who'd like to speak?
Yes. Steve, can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you. I wanted to bring to the board's attention an ongoing issue we've had in the downtown business district with our electricity. And this has been going on since 2015. This problem started when Con Ed installed the equipment in the municipal lot behind Village Hall. And that changed the delivery of electricity to the downtown district as well as the municipal hall. Since this installation, we've basically lost electricity multiple times. And this past August was hands down the worst. Now, these outages aren't due to any sort of natural occurrence, like a tree limb coming down and taking down a wire. It happens because of failure of Con Ed's equipment. And this equipment was installed after Con Ed came to the village and said, hey, we want to install this on your property to improve the quality and reliability of electricity. And that clearly hasn't happened here. And not only does this affect us residents, it affects the businesses. Our restaurants are struggling right now. And Sam's, who's right across the street from me, they've had to struggle through this pandemic and had to shut down for nearly a week until the electricity was put back on in our neighborhood. What's more troublesome is I foiled the town asking for any documents associated with this equipment. And my original FOIL response came back with not one document. It stated that not one piece of paper anywhere in Village Hall has anything to do with this equipment that was installed on town property. I had to reach back out to Ms. Draper to discuss it a little further, and they were able to find me some emails that went back and forth. And it came clear from those emails that this equipment was installed without any public discussion or any substantive analysis by our officials in our village. And it's concerning to me as a downtown resident because the building next to me is not affected. So my electricity was out for a week. The building next to me had electricity the whole time. And we keep losing electricity sporadically. And it only affects the part of downtown for basically my building, I believe all the way down maybe to 70 or 72 Main Street. So I wanted to bring that to the board's attention and see if there's anything they can do with reaching out to Con Ed to get answers on this problem.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with us reaching out to Con Ed and seeing what the situation is. And we can take a further look at how this happened and what the problem is. And if necessary, set up a meeting, perhaps even go to the Public Service Commission. So certainly we can look into that.
Do you have the dates and addresses that this affected?
I do actually, hold on. I have it right on my screen. I don't have all the dates, but I do have the addresses because they had to shut down the electricity.
Could you share that with me through email so that I have that when we go to Con Ed? Just send it to villageadministrator@dobbsferry.com.
That's not a problem.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that to us attention because Con Ed's been deficient in many areas of the village. So the more we have as many problems lined up, we can present it all at once to the utility or the proper government agency. So follow up with Ed, and then we can put together some kind of a package when we contact them.
I definitely will. Thank you for hearing me on this issue.
Thank you. Anybody else, Jen?
Rob, can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you. Hi, this is Rob Barron. Sorry to speak again. I know how busy you guys are. You don't want a long meeting. I just want to thank you as a longtime groundwork volunteer I know many of you were out there during the Great Summer River cleanups, you know, like getting the new bus stop on 9A. So I just want to say thank you very much for, you know, renewing the MOA. And, you know, if anybody wants to take a walk down there, I'd be happy to join you because it's really cool down there now. But the reason why I'm speaking is as I know the Price Street issue with the engineering, I just want to reiterate that, you know, we've been working with the Price Street residents for, I guess, about a year now with Trustee Cassell, I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor Cassell. And I know Chief Guevara and Ed were down there as well, meeting with some of the residents, and then walking Price and Chestnut Way. So the traffic committee unanimously supports, you know, doing the like what we proposed there, and having the engineering support on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Jessica, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Jessica Pflüger. I live on 11 Overlook Road here in Dobbsbury, and I am part of the Price Street neighborhood group that Rob just mentioned. So I speak today on behalf of 20 families. I have sent the names and more details via email. We figured that would be easier and take less time to only one of us to speak, but we could all show up. So of course we all want to advocate for this agenda item number 6, to hire a traffic engineer. We would love if this initiative can move forward with all of your support. We also want to thank you, Deputy Mayor Cassell, for your support to get us to this point. I want to be very brief on the issues that we're seeing. You guys are probably aware of this. Despite COVID, we have seen the traffic on Price Street returning to its pre-COVID levels, and maybe even more because fewer people seem to take public transportation. We're always grateful when the police continues to have a patrol car in the area. I personally see one there often, but as you know, they can't be at all places at all the time, and speeding is still a very big issue. We now have children walking up to Springhurst to the stairs. We have doubled the amount of bus pickups and drop-offs because of the hybrid model for the elementary school. And even adults and older students have no kind of safe walking area to get to the sidewalks on Ashford. This corner of Ashford and Price is rather dangerous. Cars are speeding around the corner. There's no street light now in the winter, and it has limited visibility. So as I said, we would love to advocate for agenda item number 6. Thank you also, Rob. The traffic committee has been an amazing partner over the past year. I know you have submitted a recommendation for a new street design. And in line with this, we have also developed and sent via email a list of complementary and all cost-effective ideas to improve the situation, literally requiring only paint and a few signs. So appreciate your support in this matter. We remain hopeful for good news and wish a happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Thank you, we appreciate it. And I do acknowledge the fact that we did receive the petition signed by the residents. So, and we'll address that when the minor comes up. So thank you. Okay, let's move to action items. I'm assuming there's no other person, right? Jennifer, I don't see anybody. Okay. So matters requiring action. Action item number 1 is the review and consideration of a draft resolution approving the site plan application for 100 Main Street. Unfortunately, due to the long history of 100 Main Street and the fact that it's very involved, we don't have that resolution to review and vote on. And rather than do something quickly without spending enough time on it, we're going to move this over to another meeting on December 15th. Correct, Laura Lee?
Yes, that is correct. I require access to a few records and proof that the matter was referred to the county planning. And that might have happened prior to our tenure. So I need to continue to research some historical documents.
Okay, so we'll put it over to the December 15th.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Action item number 2 is to consider a motion to approve the audit of claims as submitted and recommended by the village treasurer. And we have audit number 2, number 3, and number 4. Jeff, can you speak to that?
Yeah, this is just the normal claims audit process. And unless there's any questions, I don't have any additional comments.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, is there a motion? Trustee Patino, second trustee Taylor, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Action item number 3 is to consider a resolution authorizing tax certiorari settlements with petitioner Dobbsbury Apartment Court, Inc. for property located at 269 Broadway. Who can speak to this, Ed or Jeff?
Yeah, I can talk to it. As you know, all tax certs need to be approved by the board. Our attorney has reviewed this and feels that it's a fair settlement, and the board for the town and the school district settled this, have approved this in the past as well.
And this goes back to 2008, is that correct?
Yeah, it does. It kind of fell into the cracks with transition between attorneys.
Okay.
Yeah, you have a special counsel, Mr. Danko, assigned to attend to the certioraries that occurred and were filed prior to your merging assessing units with the town. So this is Mr. Danko's matter, and he does recommend this is appropriate.
Okay. And this is a total refund of $93,007.87.
Correct.
So is there a motion authorizing the tax certiorari settlement with petitioner Dobbsbury Apartment Court, Inc. for property located at 269 Broadway in the amount of $93,007.87? I need a motion. Trustee Taylor, second. Deputy Mayor Costello, all in favor? That's a big one. That hurts.
Yes, it does.
I'm sure it includes some interest. So yeah.
I've got one question for Jeff, and I guess Lori Lee as well. I assume that we have undertaken efforts to make sure that we do not have other outstanding certioraries like this that are unknown to us, unknown to the board.
And yes, you have hired special counsel, Mr. Danko, to audit, and this came up in his audit, and he's been processing the other certiorari matters that have been hanging around. So this one he's caught up in terms of his due diligence. So he'll continue his due diligence, and hopefully we won't find another one with this length of time, and you won't be incurring the interest that is associated with it.
Right. Obviously, it's very important for the board and for the treasurer to know as soon as possible when there is a potential certiorari.
Action item number 4 is to consider a resolution authorizing tax certiorari settlement with petition DeVoe Twin Properties, LLC, for a property located at 20 DeVoe Street. Jeff?
Again, same idea. Our attorney, Mr. Danko, has recommended approving this. It's a lot smaller, $1,387.16.
Okay, and this is just for the year of
2019, correct.
Is there a motion authorizing this? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Action item number 5 is a discussion and consideration of a motion to authorize the village administrator to issue a request for proposals for professional engineering services simultaneously with an RFT for planning services authorized on November 10th, 2020. Ed, can you speak to this?
So our planning consultant is retiring or put in his resignation. I don't know if he's retiring, but so we did put out an RFP for planning. And since the planner and the engineer were joined, we thought we'd get a price on engineering as well, engineering consultant, and see if it's time for a change. So we'd send that out to multiple firms and see what quotes we get back.
Okay, Laura Lee, do you want to add something on that?
Yeah, we've drafted a proposed RFP for the planning services based upon your instructions at the last board meeting. And so when Mr. Manley and I discussed this with some detail, we thought perhaps it's appropriate to look board at your consulting services. So we'll be issuing this. It will be based on, but a separate RFP. It'll be based on the same format that Ed and I are working on for the planning, and we'll get them both out with appropriate deadlines and hopefully get some responses for you to review. And of course, the current consultants will also be provided an opportunity to respond.
Okay, so is there a motion to authorize the village administrator to issue a request for proposals? Trustee DeRossi, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? And that passes unanimously, so thank you. Action item number 6 is the item that I added regarding Price Street. It will be a motion to authorize the expenditure of $3,600 to Mazer Consulting for the evaluation of traffic mitigation on Price Street. So we've heard 2 people speak on that already from courtesy of the floor. We did receive an email and a petition from residents on Price Street. Donna, do you want to share anything else with us?
Yeah, I just want to say we have been working, and a group of us went out there a couple of times, particularly Ed, the police chief, Steve Treasure, and Jen, members of the traffic committee, and to look at price and walk through price. And we did notice that there are concerns there, and no one really had too many issues with what the traffic committee was sort of proposing, except that since travel lanes might have to be changed, some parking restrictions may have to change. We realized, I've been talking with Ed as well, that we really needed to get a professional engineer to sign off on it for liability issues and just for procedural issues. And I mean, Ed can talk to this better than I can, but he said that the price quote was reasonable and wasn't out of line with what we were asking the engineer to do.
Yeah, the traffic committee came up with a very intelligent suggestion, but unfortunately, it's just a sketch of hatching and moving the center line over to make one side wider, and then having a walking space on one side, making it safer for pedestrians and kids going to school. But we just thought it would be prudent to have a traffic engineer take a look at it and do some investigation and make sure that we're doing the right thing here.
It will be similar to what we did on Ogden Avenue. That's the same sort of idea.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know that Price Street has increased traffic results. I have to say I'm guilty of that myself at times. So I understand it and I'm all for it. So is there a motion? Trustee Casal, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? Okay, that passes unanimously. So we'll move forward with that. Okay, let's move to the minutes. Anybody have any comments regarding the minutes? Okay, since there's no comments regarding the minutes, is there a motion to adopt the minutes of November 10th, 2020? trustee Patino, second trustee Nell, all in favor. And that passes unanimously. So now we go to trustee liaison reports. Sustainability Task Force, Larry?
There are a number of initiatives going on, following up on some of the legislation that was passed, as well as some other items to be discussed at our next meeting, including a number of things that have come up from time to time with respect to leaf blowers, as well as other matters. But that's what we've got so far.
Okay. Youth Service Council, Maura?
I just want to remind everyone to please register for the Holiday Hustle, which this year is going to be virtual. Remember that everything that we collect for this event is for the holiday gift that we gather and put together for families in our community. And now more than ever, of course, with all of the results of layoffs and so many different challenges that we have faced in 2020, more than ever, we need everybody's cooperation. So I encourage everybody to please sign up. We definitely need your help this year more than ever. I also continue to hear a lot of talk about the sewage tax, and I encourage residents to please go to our website and look at the questions and answers that Elisa kindly have put together to ease some of the questions that the community has. There's a lot of information there. And if you have any other questions, we of course have opened that to contact the village hall and get more information directly from us.
And could I just say it's a sewer rent? The fact is, the fact is, if it were a tax, we couldn't equitably distribute the costs across the board. All of the 40% of non-taxable properties would not be eligible to pay this rent. So it's a sewer rent, and let's be just careful of that.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. That's why you're here. Thank you.
Conservation Advisory Board. Donna? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Still muted. There we go.
Nope. There you go.
There I go. Okay. The CAB, is continuing the cleanup work. They recently did something at the old Croton Aqueduct, and one of the members, David Duarte, will be working on High Street. He's a landscaper, and he's going to be very generously doing some tree work, taking some trees down and doing some more work down there. And we're getting the Friends of High Street also together to help do clearing. So that's a very good project. That the most recent one, in addition to all the other ones they've been working on. The CAB's been doing some really terrific work lately. I also want to talk about the senior program. Abby had asked me to give a shout out to the Dobbsbury School before every year they supply a Thanksgiving dinner for the seniors. This year, obviously, because of COVID, it didn't happen, but they still provided 60 meals for the seniors, which were delivered by the senior program and the rec department. And so we're very grateful, give them a fabulous shout out that for 60 seniors will now have Thanksgiving dinner. So that's really terrific work that they've done. Also, because of COVID and things that are going on, they really do need help with more senior angels, people who will do some shopping or help some of the seniors out with chores and shopping. So maybe perhaps some of the college students who are home for the holidays would be willing to volunteer for that. Also, the senior bus is taking seniors once a week. They're taking them shopping. They do it in a couple of trips. Everybody's temperature is taken before they get on the bus. Abby wipes the bus down constantly. And they also, I believe, have them sign waivers. So they are taking reservations for that. So if you're willing to volunteer, or if you need senior bus service for shopping, call Abby at 693-0024.
Thank you, Donna.
Okay.
The ZBA?
There wasn't a whole lot happening in ZBA or AHRB in the past 2 weeks. No updates, but can I announce something else?
Depends on your
It's my turn. So there's a food drive happening for the Dobbs Ferry Food Bank next on December 4th through December 7th at Stop and Shop. It's organized by, I believe, a group of residents. And let's see. Yeah, it's that weekend. So bring stuff December 4th to 7th to Stop and Shop. We'll try and get more specifics and send it out to Elisa for the newsletter.
Great.
Ready?
Mhm.
Okay. I just have two announcements. One is we've formed as people may know, we were required by the governor to form a committee, the New York State Police Reform and Reinvention Task Force. We have formed that committee, that task force. We've sent out we've contacted each person on that task force, and we set our first meeting, which would be December 2nd, to meet and discuss and evaluate the police department. I just want to stress again that our police department is one of the few police departments that are accredited in Westchester County. So we've already gone through a lot of the procedures that are necessary in going through this reinvention and reform. But our first committee meeting will be December 2nd. We will, if we haven't already, put it on the website, and with the task force members, we were required by law to have a certain number or types of stakeholders in part of the committee. And I think we have a good representative group of people on this task force who've expressed a lot of interest and excitement in evaluating and reviewing the police vis-a-vis our town. So it's something that we don't know where it's going to lead, but it's important that we do this. And I'm looking forward to what the outcome will be. We have to submit, we have to review the procedures, and then on April 1st, advise the state that we have reviewed our procedures. So thank you all people who have volunteered and agreed to be on it. Secondly, I'd like to announce, unfortunately, the number of people who are tested positive for COVID-19 continue to rise dramatically in our village. I can't say it again, how important it is that people maintain social distancing. I know it's a very difficult time with Thanksgiving coming up, but please do not go out without wearing a mask. Please be sure to wash your hands. Please be sure you're socially distant. I don't know how much more we can stress this. The numbers have increased tremendously, and I don't know if we're taking it lightly or we're just assuming that we're not going to get ill or sick, too badly sick, but it's really crucial that we be responsible and limit our social contacting.
You can show a chart if you want.
Let's show your chart.
It's really bad. Should see the chart I pulled up instead. Ah,
Oh my God, look at that chart.
terrible.
So
Beginning of November, we had 13 active. Now we're at 42. Hopefully we're stabilizing and going back down, but not with Thanksgiving coming. It's not going to be good. Don't gather, people, and wear masks.
The county released some great videos and additional information in English and Spanish that I've been sharing on my Facebook page. I think that it will be very good for people to look at all the guidelines and recommendations there. I'm forcing my family to do everything that is on the list. Otherwise, there will not be no Thanksgiving.
Okay, so thank you, everybody. And do I have a motion to have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody? And stay safe. And is there a motion to adjourn? Trustee Sullivan, second trustee Nell, all in